This video was sponsored by Skillshare.
Hey! A lot of you guys have been asking for another tips and tricks video. So I thought, hey, I can do that. Now this video is completely random. These tricks follow no specific theme. They're all over the place. Some of them you might know already, and some of them might be new to you. So watch the video, check it out. You might learn something, you might not. Comment down below if you've got a trick that you know about that you think might be useful to other people, and I'll try and throw it in the next video. I think that's it. Let's do this. All right, so this tip, it might be stupid, but I've been doing this for years, so I thought I might as well share it with you. All you're gonna need for this is a little scrap piece of 1/4 inch ply, a straw, and a piece of blue tape. Now what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna drill a hole in the center of that little scrap piece of ply, the same diameter as your straw. Then you're gonna shove your straw through the center, just like that, until most of it's sticking out. Take your piece of blue tape and you're gonna wrap it around one end like this. This is just gonna keep the straw from being able to pass back through that piece of ply. Now, what is this? Well, now you have a straw that can't fall in your drink. No, I'm just kidding. It's got another purpose. So I find myself from time to time really wanting to get in tight crevices to clean out dust and dirt and stuff. And most crevice tools that come with a vacuum, they're just way too big. You can't get really in there. You can blow them out with the air compressor, but then you got dust all over your shop and you're breathing it in. So if you make one of these, all you have to do is take your shop vac or your dust extractor or whatever, turn it on, and then it's gonna suck that plate tight to the top. And then you got this little tiny crevice tool that you can clean up in all your little cracks and crevices. Let me show you how it works. While I'm talking about the dust extractor and vacuums and all that, I thought I'd show you one more little trick. Now this only really works if you got a Festool dust extractor, but a lot of you guys do, so I thought I'd show you. Now the Festool dust extractors have these little green clips on the top, and those are made so you can stack sustainers on top and lock them in. I never use mine for that because this stays in the shop and I only use it to hook up to my sanders and stuff. What I don't like about this system is when you plug stuff in and you're pulling on the sander, half the time this thing pops out and comes unplugged in the middle of sanding. You gotta go back and try and stick it in there and make sure it stays. So what I did was I took out the green clip right here above the plug. And so whenever I plug my sander in, I fold my cord in half like that and I stick it down in there and make a loop, and then I stick my plug through it, just like that. And then I plug it in down there and kind of tighten it up a little bit if you want. And that's gonna make sure that you can pull on this all you want all day long, and this is never gonna come unplugged while you're sanding, which is great. So you can use it for your sander, your track saw, whatever you're plugging in here, and you don't have to worry about accidentally unplugging it while you're doing your work. Hey, a weird question I get from time to time is how do I gain respect of other woodworkers? People will say, I'm new to this field. I just want to have the respect of other people out there. How do you go about doing that? They say, you've been doing it a while. How did you get respect from other woodworkers? Well, I'll tell you a little trick that I like to use. You get on Amazon and you buy a little bottle of this fake blood. And then what you do is you invite a bunch of other woodworkers over to your shop. And right before they get to your shop, you take some of the fake blood and you just drip it all over your hand, kind of smear it around like this, okay? And then they walk in and you just start talking to them like, hey man, what's up? Welcome to my shop. And of course, they're gonna be like, dude, your hand, what happened? And you look at it, you're like, nah, just a splinter or something. And you just keep on going with whatever you're building. they'll immediately think you are one tough guy, and you'll gain the respect of the whole woodworking community. I've done it like 20 times. Hey, nowadays, when I want to hand sand, normally I just grab a sanding disc, fold it in half, and sand away. But there still comes a time when I want to use a traditional sheet of sandpaper. Maybe I need a really tiny piece because I'm trying to get in a small area. Sometimes I cut these into strips and use them on the lathe. Every once in a while, they just work better to use sheets of sandpaper. But they can kind of be a pain to cut up or get to the size you want. Either you got to fold them in half a bunch of times and tear them, use scissors, but it can destroy your scissors. And I remember when I was 12 years old, in one of my friend's dad's wood shop, he had this cool little sandpaper cutter that he made, and it was super neat, so I thought I'd show you. And all you need is a hacksaw blade. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hacksaw blade and a pair of pliers. All right, so you're gonna just put your pliers on there. I just like to use the head of the pliers as my measurement, so I do it right to the end, and you bend that out like that. And then you move right to the bent spot, and you bend that in like that. And then you do the same thing to the other side, out, back in. Now, you got this nice blade that you can attach to your workbench. As you can see, I've had one attached down here for a while. All you gotta do is slide your sandpaper in there, fold it over till it's even or whatever size you want it at. And then you just can perfectly cut really any size you want. Pretty quick and easy, and you got sandpaper in all your different sizes. Just like that. Cost about what, $2 for a hacksaw blade? I don't know. All right, this next tip involves the speed square. Now this is one of those tips that I just kind of assumed everybody knew. But I had somebody over in my shop the other day and I was using a speed square to do this, and they were like, what? I didn't know it could do that. So I thought I'd share it. If you already know this, I'm sorry. And if you don't, well, it's a good little trick to have in your bag. So we all know the speed square is great for two main things. You can draw a line this way and you can draw a line this way. This would technically be like 0 degrees, 90 degrees, depending on how you're looking at it. And this would be 45 degrees. But what apparently some people didn't know is that you can do other degrees with this thing. You got this little point down here. It says pivot point. So if you keep it firm on that point and you pivot it like this, you got all these numbers along this edge here. And that changes the degree right here. So if you pivot it, which would be on 0, you can pivot over to 5, do 5 degrees, 10, do 10 degrees. You can pivot it all the way over to 30 and get really crazy. 30 degrees. So this is really helpful to draw different degrees besides just 45 and 90. It's also helpful if you have a piece of wood that's already cut in an angle and you're trying to figure out what that angle is. You can slap this on there, rotate it until it matches up with your cut, and it'll tell you exactly what the angle is. So if you didn't know, now you do. Whew. I'm getting tired of all this running around. One of the most common questions I get is how do you glue up a tabletop without getting it to bow? And I've shared a little bit of some of the ways you can alleviate this, alternating the grain, but clamping is another big reason that people get bows in their table. And I've talked about this before. Most people will clamp up a panel and they'll just put way too much pressure on their clamps, and that just causes it to bow. But sometimes it doesn't even matter if you put too much pressure. Just the pressure on the outside of that is gonna cause your table to bow up. So what do? Well, panel clamps are a wonderful solution to this problem because as you clamp things together, they can't bow up. But if you've looked into the price of panel clamps, it's pretty insane. For a nice set of panel clamps, you're spending hundreds of dollars. So I thought I would show you how to make your own panel clamp system just using stock wood from Home Depot. And it's not that expensive and they work just as good, if not better, because you can customize them to whatever size you want. So let's do this. All right, to make my panel clamps, I just got some stock, what is this, 1x4 from Home Depot. It's poplar. You can use poplar, you can use maple, you can use pine, whatever you want, because we're gonna orient these this way. So it's gonna have a lot of strength because it's up and down. But before I get going cutting these up, I thought of one more tip I can show you. If you ever buy wood from Home Depot, which you should try and avoid at all costs, for some reason Home Depot likes putting a million price tags on everything, which is super annoying because you want to use that wood, and if you want to put finish or stain on it or whatever, there's always a square wherever you put the price tag. So here's a quick way to get rid of price tags, really easy. All you want to do is get a heat gun, a blow dryer will work just as well, and you turn it on. Just like that, and then the price tag, it comes right off in one piece, and you don't have to worry about it. Now you know.
This video was sponsored by Skillshare. Ooh. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Whether you're trying to hone an existing skill or maybe learn a new skill altogether, Skillshare is the place for you with a wide array of different classes and a plethora of different topics. Like this sweet class called YouTube Success.
Hey, what's up? I'm Marquez Brownlee, aka MKBHD on the internet. I make YouTube videos about tech products. I'm excited to share my process, which I haven't really done before because I identify as a...
Or maybe you're just trying to find your style. Yep, they got a class for that too.
Hey, do you want to find your style? Let's go! You've heard it said that to be creative is to think outside the box. I think it's more about creating your own box, your own set of constraints. My name is Andy J. Pizza, and I am an illustrator, podcaster, and public speaker.
Yes, his last name was Pizza. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership, so you can explore your creativity.
All right, I cut these pieces down. You're gonna need 4 pieces for each set of panel clamps. So I cut this down to 48 inches because I want it big enough that I can stick a standard tabletop in between there. So once you get your pieces cut down, you're gonna take one of your pieces and you're gonna mark over 1 inch from the end of the piece. And then you're gonna set your clamp on there. I'm just using these Pony Jorgensen, I don't know what these are called, F clamps, these big bodied ones. And you're gonna mark out where that clamp is gonna land, just like that. Now we gotta remove some of this material, so I'm gonna take it back over to the chop saw and use the trenching feature, and you're gonna take out equal amounts on both sides of 2 pieces. The goal is to make a space big enough that that clamp can rest down in there. Now it doesn't have to be tight, so it's all right to mark your line out a little bit so that there's a little wiggle room, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So let's remove that material. All right, so really quickly on the miter saw with the trenching feature, we just took out equal amounts of material on both pieces of wood. You could do this any way you want. You could do it with a miter saw, you could do it with a dado stack, you could do it with a router. You just want to remove enough material that you can stick a clamp in there like that and it'll float between the wood. Okay, so that's step number 1. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue these together in one long piece like this. You just want to make sure when you glue them up that obviously your notched out little holes are lined up. So let's do that. Man, I just keep thinking of different tips and tricks. Now you've probably heard the trick where if you're gluing 2 pieces of wood together, you can put salt on them to keep them from moving around. It just holds them so they don't slide back and forth. But fine sawdust works exactly the same way. So I just grab a little sawdust off the floor and I sprinkle it on there, and it just helps them not slide back and forth when you clamp them up. So good to know. Okay, while those dry up, we can start getting our clamps ready. Now, I like to use these F-body clamps when I do these panel clamp jig thingamawhatsits. The only problem is if you have these F-style clamps, there's a little tab at the top to keep this from coming all the way off. Obviously, you don't want to just be pulling it off, which is a nice feature, except for these, because we want to be able to take it all the way off so we can stick it in and out of those clamping calls. So we're just going to remove the little knobs on here that make it impossible to take this off, so we can slide this end off. Check it out. Okay, our panel clamps are done. That took me maybe half an hour to make these, and I'm gonna show you how they're gonna work. So I got these slabs of walnut in here. These aren't milled up. I'm not actually gonna glue them together, but for demonstration purposes, they'll work great. So the way I like to use these is I lay out my bottom row on the bottom. Usually you only need 2 sets for one big panel glue up, because all you're trying to do is keep the panel from bowing up. So you do one on the bottom, and then you take your top one, you stick it over the top like that. Now, remember, I've already prepared these clamps so that this comes all the way off. So you're gonna just slide this through both of those holes and then reconnect it on the bottom like that. Do it on one side, come over here, do it on the other side. Now, what we have essentially is our own homemade panel clamp. You just tighten these down on this side, tighten this down on this side, until you get them nice and tight. Now, this is gonna completely eliminate this panel from being able to bow. It's not gonna be able to. So you get all your glue in there, you stick these on, get them tightened down, and then you add your clamps in the other direction. And what that's gonna do is give you a perfect flat panel every time, and it only costs a few bucks and a half an hour of time and a quick run to Home Depot. So, there you have it. Let's talk about finishing, specifically application of finishes. I get a lot of questions from people saying, what's the best way to apply a finish, whether it be oil or stain or lacquer, anything. Do you want to use a rag? Garbage. Should I use a sponge? Stupid. Should I use a foam brush? Why go spend money on something when everything you need is right in front of your face? What you're going to want to do is take your finish, grow out a nice, thick, luxurious beard. It's a built-in sponge. Then take your piece of wood. Yeah, that's it. Just let the hair fibers mingle with the wood fibers. I mean, look at that. That was like 2 seconds, and I'm already getting a perfect sheen. All right, now this trick seems a little goofy, but I swear it works great. Now, I use Rubio Monocoat a lot to finish my furniture, which comes in these little jars. But this works for Rubio Monocoat, it works for stain, anything that comes in these little pop-top jars. The problem with these jars is they're a pain to pour out of, because you go to pour something and all the liquid gets in that little rim. And then you can never get it cleaned out. When you go to put the lid back on, well, you don't get a good seal, and it shortens the lifespan of whatever chemical you might be using. So what I like to do is, you pop the top off of there, okay? and then you steal some Play-Doh from your child. Stole this from my son. You take some of the Play-Doh out, you just work it a little bit, and you smush it right down into that rim. Then, this is where it gets tricky. If you want to go a step further, I like to make a little spout, a little pour spout out of it. Just have fun with it. Be the artist you were meant to be, okay? Just like that. Then, all you gotta do is take your liquid, pour it in there, whoop, 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 just like that, okay? And then you just peel the Play-Doh off, and you've got a perfectly clean rim around the top. Does it waste Play-Doh? Yeah, but this stuff is like 25 cents for a little tin of it, so waste away. At least you're gonna make your expensive chemicals last longer. So, now you know. One of the most common questions I get asked all the time is what is the best way to install inset cabinet drawer faces? It really depends on the application, to be quite honest. There's a number of different ways you can do it, and I kind of switch back and forth between all of them depending on what I'm up against. Now the easy answer is the best way to do it is before you put a top on the cabinet, because then you can just get it all shimmed out, reach in there, screw it on, and you can do it all the way down. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're replacing drawer faces, sometimes the top's already on. For whatever reason, you can't get in there. So how do you get the inset cabinet drawer face installed with a perfect reveal all the way around without being able to reach inside the cabinet? I'm going to show you my 3 favorite ways to do it, and you can decide what's going to work best for you. So here they are. All right, so here's method number 1. I'm not saying this is the best method, but it's a method that you can use. So for this, I've already got my door spaced exactly how I want it. For spacers, I like to use playing cards because they're just easy. You can add more or less, no problem. So I have it spaced. I know the amount of cards I want on the bottom and on one side. I don't need to put any on the top or on this side because that's all I need to get my reveal. So what I'm gonna do is take these out. Those are my side. And I'm gonna take these out. Those are my, cards everywhere. Okay, side, those are my bottoms. Remove the drawer face. Then I'm gonna get some double-sided tape. Now you can get double-sided tape like this jazz here that is crazy strong. I mean, it's really secure stuff. And I'm gonna stick a piece right there on this side. All right, I sped that up so you didn't have to watch me fumble around with the tape. But you get 2 pieces of double-sided tape. Now the thing I like about this specific tape is it's super thin. So I'm not even gonna worry about taking this back off after I get these mounted. I'm just gonna leave it there and sandwich it in between the drawer and the drawer face. Then I take my spacers. I know these go on the bottom. And I kind of set this in there like that. I know these go on the side. So I set those, I pull it tight against there. And then I'm just gonna push until that adheres down. Then I can remove all these and then I can pull my drawer face out and screw it in. It's that easy. It's installed with my double-sided tape. I can put a clamp on there to hold it firm while I put my screws in, and you're good to go. So that's option number 1. Let's look at option number 2. All right, option number 2. For whatever reason, double-sided tape isn't gonna work. Maybe it's a really heavy drawer face and you just can't put enough double-sided tape on there to make it stay firm the way you want it. So here's another option. You take screws and you insert them from the inside of your drawer until they're just sticking out about 1/8 of an inch out the front of your drawer. Just like that. So they're just these sharp little points. You're gonna insert your drawer, you're gonna put your spacers back in place like that. You're gonna set your drawer face in there, get it all spaced out exactly where you want, and then you're gonna take a mallet Get those in there nice and tight. And you're just gonna hit it. Now, what's gonna happen here is those screws that are hanging out the front of your drawer, they're gonna put little holes exactly where the screws need to go. Then you can take a drill, pre-drill those out a little bit. You're gonna pull your drawer out, line it back up onto those holes right where it left the marks, clamp it down and screw it in, and it should be perfect. That's option number 2. What about option number 3? Ooh. Gesundheit. Okay, option number 3. Now this is actually my favorite option, but it doesn't always work because the key here is you have to know what hardware is going on the drawer. If you're lucky, it's gonna be some sort of handle that's gonna be hooked in 2 places. But this will still work if it's a single knob, pull, whatever. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna mark out exactly where you want your hardware to land on that drawer face. You're gonna get it spaced out how you want, and you're gonna drill for your hardware. But you're gonna drill all the way through into the drawer face. Then you're gonna take a couple screws and you're gonna send them through those holes into the drawer box itself, and that's gonna hold the drawer face on there nice and tight to the drawer box. Then you can pull it out, screw it in from the inside, remove those screws, and then those screw holes are gonna be covered up by the hardware that's gonna go on there, and you've pre-drilled for your hardware. That one works great. So if it's an option and you know what the hardware is, do that. It's the best. Darn it, I said that none of them were the best. Okay, they all work great, but that one works really good. Well, there you go. I know I went through those quick, but hopefully you got something out of that. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you have some helpful tips or tricks that you think people would enjoy seeing, comment down below. I'll go through there, I'll try and pick out some of the best ones, and I'll do another video like this. If you haven't already, subscribe down below. Go check out my website. There's a link in the video description where you can get sweet merchandise like t-shirts and motivational posters and coffee mugs and all that stuff. And if you want to support my channel even further, you can do so at my Patreon page. There is also a link in the video description. Good day.